Welcome to Retirement Key Radio with Abe Abish.
Getting into the new year, hopefully getting out of the pandemic sooner than later. And with that in mind, what would you say of yourself? Are you more or less confident about your ability to retire? Because, Abe, a new survey from the Transamerica Institute says at least 1 in 5 Americans are now less confident because of what the pandemic has done to our economy. And I feel it's a reasonable worry. But for somebody who has this concern, how might he or she benefit from having a conversation with you and your team to review their options and see where they stand?
Heather, just meeting with a financial professional or advisor for 30 minutes to an hour, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours over the course of a couple meetings can provide so much relief. I can't tell you over the course of some of our meetings how tensions just drop.
Okay.
People get so relaxed and are so relieved after just talking through their situation, right? Because now they know where they stand.
Right.
If you're not getting an assessment, get a compass check, get an assessment of where you currently stand. 2020 was a crazy year. How can anyone be super confident?
Of the day, if I do say so.
It was a crazy year. So how can anyone be super confident about what they have and what they own unless they really understand it and really have taken a thorough assessment after 2020. And obviously, if you're working with a financial professional, you probably have a little more confidence than if you're not, right? If you're doing it on your own, man, there are so many things that you better know that you may not know. And that's where we encourage you to really say, you know what, I'm going to check part or all of my ego at the door.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I don't know, and I'm going to seek help for that.
Okay.
And so we just had a lady come in, classic example of, I don't know what I don't know, Abe. Let me come in. Let me try to get some relief here with my finances and retirement. Let me get a compass check. Let me find out where I stand today and how 2020 impacted me and how this current environment could impact my finances and retirement down the road.
Right.
Case in point, a lot of people were forced into early retirement last year.
Yep.
A lot of people received paid decreases. A lot of people went into furlough. And of course, a lot of people got laid off. And this lady is working for a company who is shipping a lot of American jobs over to India. And they are scaling back her department. And she is very concerned that this year she could be forced out because they're trying to get the labor for cheap and just moving that over to India.
Right.
So she wants to work another 2 full years until she's 68. But she wanted to run things through us, find out where she stood today, because right now her job security and situation in the near future is not super secure or as secure as it was before COVID and the pandemic. Okay, so she lives in Ashburn, Virginia. She has about $750,000 saved. And here is the problem with her, or the problem with her when she came in. She had no idea what she owned in terms of investments.
Wow.
Hey, Abe and the team, I've got $750,000, $750,000 saved. I'm 66. I want to retire in 2 years. Is this enough? It's kind of on the border, right? You know, if we have less than $1 million, if we have a couple 100,000 saved, $500,000, 750, man, you better be invested in the right things for you according to your risk tolerance, because you cannot afford to lose half of it.
Right.
You cannot afford to lose 20% of it. If you have $1.5 million, $2 million, $3 million, well, you can probably take on a little more risk. And if you lost $500,000, well, you still got $1.5 million left, right?
Sure.
So we need to make sure every dollar is being invested in the most efficient way and according to your risk tolerance as best as possible. So she came in and she had all of her funds in one fund in her 401k. It was a target date 2020 fund. And this is one of those like glide path funds that kind of does things automatically, and it says, oh, you're invested in the 2020 fund, you must be retiring this year or very soon. And because of that, we're going to be very conservative in your fund and make sure you're not taking on more risks than you need. But you know what we call these funds, Heather?
What?
We call them the couch potato funds. You know why?
Oh, no.
They're kind of lazy. What do you do on the couch? Just eat popcorn and drink Coke and pizza.
Yep.
Well, these funds can be lazy. They can be inefficient. They can be expensive. And we found out that her expenses in that fund were over 60 basis points. Nowadays, Heather, you can go to all of these big platforms and buy funds and ETFs for 10 basis points, 15 basis points, 20 basis points. So she was paying more than she needed to in that fund. And believe it or not, she was taking on more risk than she should have been taking. And the given return for her amount of risk wasn't in line. In other words, she was taking on a decent amount of risk and the return was not in line for that risk she was taking. So when we showed her our portfolios and the way we manage and the philosophy around our portfolios, how she could reduce the risk she's taking and potentially increase her return, well, who wouldn't do that?
Right.
And anybody just about to retire or anybody just into retirement, that's exactly what most people want to do. And what most people need to do is to really monitor and be aware of the risk you're taking, reduce the risk, squeeze it down, press it down, lower it as much as possible, and try to increase your return at the same time. That's exactly what we did for her. So the problems with her is that she didn't know what she owned. Then we found out she was taking too much risk. We educated her on what exactly she did own, the pros and cons, and we helped her to reduce her risk because she's 2 years away from full retirement.
It gets back to a point that you and I have visited a lot in these conversations, and that is knowledge is power, particularly when it comes to that money you've worked so hard to save. And it's amazing, astounding even, how many people have just no idea what's going on with all the money they've worked so hard to save. Case in point, this woman that you were talking to this week.
Exactly.
Another concern a lot of us have is derived from the very confusing mixed messages we get around the stock market. If you have some of your retirement funds in stocks, a lot of us do, you might be a little worried as we've been seeing the markets climb higher. And yet we keep hearing that the economy is weak. That's why Fox Business asked economist Mohamed El-Arian if we should stay in the market or if we should get out.
So first, this is the biggest disconnect I've ever seen, and I could have never imagined that the markets could be so disconnected. It is a bubble because it's unrelated to fundamentals, but it's rational because it depends on all these injections of liquidity. Look, I tell people it depends on how comfortable you feel with a rational bubble. That is what you're investing in right now. And if you feel comfortable, go right ahead. Surf the wave for as long as it lasts. Just make sure you get off it.
Okay, just make sure you get off it. But
Surf
when? Yeah, right? He wasn't very reassuring about a time frame here. It was a little bit of more vague information, I feel. Abe, what do you think?
Surf the wave, just make sure to get off it at some point. That's what he said.
Right. I'm like, great, thank you. But also, can you be more specific?
Here's the deal, Heather.
Yeah.
Most financial advisors will never have a strategy to exit and help their clients reduce risk and to take chips off the table. Here's exactly what happens.
Okay.
When the market's flying high, let's say 2019, the market's up 30%.
Right.
No, you would never sell. Don't ever sell, Mr. Client. You're up 30%. Why would you ever consider selling? Well, maybe that's a great time, right? Buy low and sell high. That's what people say. 2020, crazy year, 34% down in March. Why would you ever sell, Mr. Client? You're down 34%. So, Heather, if you're up 30 and you're down 30, when do you ever sell? When do you ever reduce risk? When do you ever take chips off the table? There's got to be a time. You cannot just ride the market out forever. You're not 30 or 40 years old anymore. You're now 55, 58, 62. You're at the top of the retirement mountain and you're about ready to come down, right? You've worked all of your career. You've saved enough. When do you reduce risk? Take chips off the table and start setting up your income for retirement. And a perfect time to do that is about 5 to 10 years before you fully retire to make sure your plan is in order.
Okay.
We just had a couple come in. They live in Herndon. He's 63, she's 64. They're huge skiers. They love to ski, physically ski, like I'm talking snow ski, right?
Okay, yeah.
And they want to ski in retirement, another ski, spend their kids' inheritance. They are like...
Wait a minute, who came up with that acronym? That's hilarious.
One of our clients did. I'm like, man, I'm going to use that.
Yes.
And you know what? They don't want to pass any money on to their kids. Their kids are very smart. They're good to go. They're like, look, this one's a doctor. That one's an attorney. They don't need any more money.
We put them through college. We're done.
Exactly. Yep. So they want to ski physically and they want to spend their kids' inheritance, meaning they don't care about leaving any money on, passing any money on. They want to spend it and enjoy it. Fantastic. Here was what their problem was, as so many that come into our office and call into the show, is again, they were taking on too much risk. So as a financial fiduciary, as a certified financial fiduciary, one of our codes of conduct here is taking a holistic approach in knowing everything about somebody, finding out about their risk tolerance, finding out about where all their dollars are, what they want to accomplish in retirement. And one of their goals was to turn all of their money into income that they can enjoy.
Right.
So if you're at the top of the retirement mountain and you want to start coming down, should you be in growth-focused stuff, like all in growth-focused stuff that you were in when you were 30, 40, and 50? No.
Right.
Right? You can have some of that, right? You could live another 30 to 40 years, but you also need stuff that's going to help you get down the mountain,
right,
down the retirement mountain. And as a firm, that's where our strength is, and that's what our emphasis is, and that's what our clients are coming to us for, and that's how we help this couple to transition into retirement.
Find out more at retirementkeyradio.com.
Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Abraham Abish is licensed in your state, please call 571-577-9968. Abish Financial Services is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Abraham Abish, NPM number 770-3575.